So the last speaker from the Dole Action Group, world famous troublemaker, Kieran Bennett. Please welcome Kieran.
G'day everyone. My name's Kieran. I'm from the Dole Action Group. I was just going to spend a couple of quick minutes telling you a bit about what the Dole Action Group is and what we're doing here. We formed in response to the 2014 federal budget measures, which involved a whole range of attacks on welfare claimants and on the social wage. You'll remember that it included things like changes to pension eligibility, changes to the assessment of family tax benefit, and various other things, but there were three sort of feature parts of the government's attack on welfare claimants, and those three key pieces were the requirement that people on New Start apply for 40 jobs a month as their new participation requirement, the turning of New Start into a 6 months on, 6 months off starvation cycle, so that you would have a 6 month waiting period to get on New Start, and then you would only be on New Start for 6 months, and then you'd be off it again. So it struck me as the government saying, hey, we can only pay half of New Start, and we can still push people through the coercive measures, and they'll still have to apply for the jobs. And then the big part, of course, was, well, another big part was the implementation of work for the dole for the 6 months that you were really on New Start. Now, it's primarily targeted at young people and people under 30, but it's going to affect the broad majority of people on New Start to varying degrees. But large numbers of people are going to find themselves, as of July 2015, required to work 25 hours a week for the privilege of being on the unemployment payment. Now, the 40 jobs a week thing kind of fell by the wayside, largely because business objected. It objected to the increased cost of having to process all these millions of additional rubbish job applications, because there are so many unemployed people and so few jobs actually available. The 6 months on, 6 months off stuff was looking hopefully solid in the Senate, and whilst Scott Morrison was getting up recently and saying he's definitely on the table to implement the 6 month starvation cycle of New Start, I'm not sure that it will be implemented in 2015, not if I can have anything to do with it. The thing that is on track to be implemented of the government's three key attacks in the 2014 budget on welfare claimants is the expanded program of Work for the Dole. There are Work for the Dole trial sites being implemented now in the Mornington Peninsula and in West Melbourne, sort of west of Footscray, they call it Westgate, and in other sites in Victoria with high unemployment. And I also think that the Dole Action Group came together because we think that we can actually attack this. We can attack the implementation of Work for the Dole and use that as the beginning to attack the implementation of these other attacks on welfare claimants. We agree with all the other speakers. We call ourselves the Dole Action Group, but we believe that unified action of all welfare claimants is required in order to defeat these attacks, and that there are 750,000 people in the dole and hundreds of thousands of others on other sorts of payments. United and organised, we can actually be a significant force in this country. We can raise demands and extract concessions from government. We identified Work for the Dole as a place to start because we think it has several weaknesses. To make Work for the Dole work, the government requires the cooperation of a whole range of other actors. The government effectively requires places to put people in order to perform their forced labour, and it requires the cooperation of people being placed into these forced labour programs. It requires the NGOs, charities and local governments initially. I will highlight that the government's saying the Work for the Dole will be performed in NGOs, local government and charities, but anyone with any brains can see that the private sector is coming. The Australian Council for Commerce and Industry is saying that they want Work for the Dole in the private sector wants the free labour, and if you simply look at the number of people government wants to place in Work for the Dole against the number of probable places, it's going to be in the private sector, guys, that's where it's going. So we can break this in two ways, we believe. We can break it if we can make there not be places to put people, and if we can organise the people who would be put in these places to, as much as possible, not cooperate with the Work for the Dole program. What making there not be Work for the Dole places look like means is we think that we can raise the demand that people not exploit the labour of unemployed workers if they're not offering a real wage. We can say to charities, you will keep volunteering voluntary, otherwise we'll come for your public reputation, otherwise we'll take direct action to disrupt you. We think that unemployed workers can take direct action to disrupt the NGOs, the charities, the businesses and the local governments exploit the labour of unemployed workers. We think if we can break this one, it's the first one in the implementation cycle, it's the one that's coming now, the work for the dole is the attack that's coming this year. If we can break work for the dole, we put ourselves in a much better position to begin rolling back the government's other attacks on welfare payments and start raising demands for livable welfare above the poverty line, the end of all participation requirements because there aren't enough jobs, and the end of all exploitation of forced labour for welfare. I want to highlight that there are so many things wrong with work for the dole. When people ask us about work for the dole, there are several things we need to highlight. We need to highlight it's wrong to basically demand that people work for nothing. That even if you consider welfare a payment, it's a payment well below minimum wage if you're doing 25 hours a week of meeting house work. We're going to highlight that it doesn't work for its stated purposes. It doesn't create new jobs. It doesn't build skills. And in fact, it has negative outcomes on people's likelihood to get a job. We need to say that it's useless, but and also that it undermines the paying conditions of the already employed class because it effectively creates a new minimum wage at $10.61 an hour if you work it out. So in the Dole Action Group, that's sort of our focus for the coming year. We really want to work with other groups on all sorts of welfare campaigns, and we want to get people involved and start talking about how we can step up work for the dole. So for those reasons, I really encourage people to put little contact things on each seat, there's big contact lists, and also stick around because we've got a huge meal prepared outside, and I'd love to talk to as many people as possible about this. And we can smash the system of coercion and punishment for everyone employed.